Welcome back to another video from Glass City Racing. Today we're going to be looking at the GTE series on iRacing. We're going to take a deep dive in the beginnings of it, in the real world, what happened to it, the legendary battles between manufacturers, and then we're going to compare GTE to GT3. Now I've got to be really cautious when I talk to you about this, because when you say it fast, GTE and GT3, you can get confused. But let me tell you, there is no confusion here. The GTE cars were monsters of their time. They gobbled up money, they gobbled up speed, they were fast. And here's the good thing about it, they're still fast. They're faster than the GT3s. The GT3s are the modern day cars with the technology. But if you want to go back and old school race, start looking at these GTEs. They're a lot of fun. Let's dive into some history. What got me looking at GTE? Well, big shout out to Dave Cam on YouTube. He had made a post, and he's talking about how he was going to spend the summer. He's going to race these GTE cars. High downforce, a lot of speed. That braking's tricky. And he said something. He said the community is not that big, and he got some blowback from the community. I want to agree with him. It's not as big as GT3, but there's a community. And here's one of the nice things about this community. The people there are serious. When you get into a split, you're going to be racing, if you're a 1400, 1500, 1800 guy, I'm talking about iRating, you're going to be racing some 3000 rating guys. Now, you don't get to do that too often in GT3. GT3, this week, they're at Daytona. The splits are long. They're wide. There's a lot of people racing, and because of that, you find yourself with a bunch of people who are on the same par with you. There's a lot to be said about that. That's who you should be racing. That's why iRacing's put it in. But sometimes you just want to get out there with people who are better, people who can push you to the limit, make you defend, make you chase, make you grip that steering wheel like there's no one's business. That's what GTE's bringing. I'm glad to be talking to you about this. As you can see, the turn of the century brought on GTE. There was a hole. Manufacturers wanted a place where they could sell their sports cars in the showroom after what people watched them race on the weekend. Let's face it, the C-type cars that were racing in the late 80s and 90s were nothing you were going to drive on the street. So, the manufacturers that you see coming through your screen right now, they went on a journey, and it was an expensive journey. That journey was to bring racing to the road, to the track, and start selling cars in the showroom. In 1999, when the FIA started putting what would soon to become the GTE car on the track, its humble beginnings was the GT2 car. And you started to see slowly manufacturers come out with their cars. Porsche, Ferrari, Corvette. By 2010, there were manufacturers who had an equation that meant they would make money. Taking your factory-built monster to the racetrack did work. People wanted that car. They wanted to drive off the showroom floor the car you were showing at Sebring or you saw at Daytona. It was a beautiful thing. The problem was we started an arms race, and it was going to be an expensive arms race. An arms race that made things too expensive. And because it was too expensive, most car manufacturers could not get into this race. So that's why when you look at iRacing and you see how many cars you can drive, there's only 5. Go over to the GT3. I think there's 10 now, because there's a whole world of change between the two, and we'll document that right now. With manufacturers finding out it's becoming too hard to complete in the GTE series, they started to turn to the FIA, and they started to say, we don't want a spec car. We still want to be a part of this, but we want to deliver a car that would be consumer friendly. We want to offer in a situation where manufacturers will still design the car, they'll still make the car, but customers will buy the car, and the customers will then race the car. What we call the Gentleman Series. This was going to translate to better balance of performance, a more fair racing environment, and more importantly, more people buying cars in the showroom. Over the years, you would see GTE slowly dwindle, and as it dwindled away, GT3 started to take its place, and that's where we're at today. Before we jump into the changing of the guard from GTE to GT3, let's take a moment to look at the 5 cars that iRacing offers you in the GTE series. Trust me when I tell you this. Get out on the track and hammer these cars home. They're fun. They have a lot of downforce, they have a lot of power, and they don't have very much electronics at all. No ABS. So let's look at first the Chevrolet Corvette. What red-blooded American doesn't like seeing a Corvette in these liveries? I want to say thanks to Trading Paints. Everybody who's in iRacing loves Trading Paints. It's just a copy of their page. You can go out there and get those liveries yourself. Hey, or even if you want to, become a pro and make your own liveries. It's a lot of fun. It's what makes iRacing special. So going back to the Corvette, it was first developed obviously by Corvette Racing, and its debut year for this car in the GTE series was 2020. It's a mid-engine car, and that broke my heart. I grew up in those old 1970s Corvettes, and they were the big yellow car that everybody loved watching racing, and then they went mid-engine on us, and it was scary. We did not like it. But I'm going to tell you what it was. It got fast. The mid-engine gave the stability that everyone's looking for. Now we just take mid-engine for granted. In the GT3 series, your Acura and cars like that are mid-engine cars. They just happen to work like that. But let's go back to that history. This version of the mid-engine Corvette first debuted at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2021. It wasn't real fast. And quite frankly, over the next years before it was retired, it did not fare well. It seemed to get in trouble everywhere you went. But there was also some complaints of balance of performance. And this would hound Corvette. They never seemed to get past it. It almost looked as if they were eager to get out of GTE because of these situations. The Corvette never won at Le Mans. It always found bad luck wherever it could find it. The one ray of light, however, is where it mattered the most, was in IMSA. IMSA had racing going on, and it did do well. It dominated early in 2021. But in general, for GTE, the writing was on the wall, and Corvette had to start focusing on a new series, that GT3 car. And it was replaced by the Z06, the GT3R. And quite frankly, when I race, I love the Corvettes. And when I get on the track with the GTEs, I'm in a Corvette to this day. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I grew up with Corvettes, but I love them to death. Moving on to our next car. It's very simple. Nothing says motorsports like Ferrari. And Ferrari obviously was a leader in this range, just like it's been a leader in all ranges. Ferraris, to me, as an American, seems to be the car that these Europeans drive. The people with more money that they can deal with. But man, I would love to drive one. Matter of fact, I keep telling you about myself. If you see me in a GT3, I'm driving the Ferrari. I don't know, call me old school, but I love it to death. It's incredible. It was obviously made by Ferrari. It was first brought out into the league in 2016, and it was immediately a winner. It won the GT Pro Class in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2019. It rose to the top in almost any factory-based racing organization in the world, and it's always just been the gold standard when it comes to race cars. Ferrari won the 2017 Drivers and Teams Championships in WEC, or what we often call WEC in Europe. The Le Mans Series, like we mentioned, in 2019. Also in 21. It was consistently competitive across the United States, in Europe, Le Mans Series, here in IMSA, and across the world. What legacy does it leave behind? It leaves behind its precision of everything. It's handling, it's high downforce, it's cornering, maneuvering. This car has been and probably always will be one of the top cars in racing. And I believe you can find that in the same way on iRacing as you do in the real world. What was the successor? Well, the successor is that Ferrari 296 GT3. One of the reasons why people love the Ferrari 296 is because up into this last update, when you bought that car, you could ride in mini series with it. Now they've went to what they call the 296 Challenger. You do have to buy another car, but man, if you want some horsepower, get on that one. Now, if you were born in the 1970s and grew up in the 80s, nothing said cool like Tom Cruise dumping his dad's Porsche, literally, into a lake. Well, you can look that movie up and see the shenanigans there, but it's a classic. You were the 1980s bad dude if you were driving a Porsche. Back then, that 911 was what everybody wanted to be a part of, and that translated into the 911 being on the racetrack. And that's what you have. The 911 RSR is what we call the Gen 991. A lot of you guys are familiar with the Gen 992. What I want to talk about here about the Porsche is about GTE in general. And the reason why GTE seems to be doomed is because of the war they were competing in, the spending of money to win. Porsche did a dramatic change. They're not original car. Porsche has been around forever, but their 2013 car was a rear engine car. And in 2017, they changed it all up and went with the mid-engine car because the writing was on the wall. Mid-engine cars are where it needed to be. If you wanted to go at Sebring and you wanted to be on those type of tracks that just threw you all around, you had to have the precision and the balance that made things go. In the end, that cost money. It cost a lot of money. Was it going to be worth it? Were people going to run out and buy a Porsche because of the success they saw on the speedway? The Porsche has always been a winner, and it's always been iconic. It won the 2013 Le Mans class with the rear engine and turned around in 2018 and won it with a mid-engine. And if you remember that, that was the Pink Pig. Everybody remembers the Pink Pig. Go on Trading Paints, you'll find the Pink Pig out there, and people race it to this day. The question you might be asking yourself is, which Porsche car do you get in the GTE series on iRacing? You're going to get the 2019 mid-engine car. Here's the thing, it doesn't have ABS. That's unique among the iRacing cars in GTE. But it's a very agile, responsive, and highly rewarding car to drive. Go out there and try it. A lot of people love it. Hopefully you're out there watching this video. You're familiar with the GTEs. And something you'll see right away in these videos in the background. The BMW seems to always be out front. It might be the fastest car. It's definitely the most unique car. It's longer than all the other cars. It's wider than all the other cars. The car is a get up and go. It's fast. The BMW M8 GTE made its debut at the Rolex 24 in Daytona in 2018. The BMW M8 packed a punch. A 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 which sat up front on this car. Scrap the mid-engine, it's sitting up front, and the torque is going straight through the body and it's hitting back on the back axles. In 2018, what we called the WeatherTech Championship, Rolex 24 at Daytona, BMW brought home the win in class. It would then move on to Europe, but it didn't have the success it had there. It never achieved major success, and it would exit the WEC after one season. So quickly, what were the performance characteristics? That large car, it was stable. It was pretty predictable in high-speed corners. It was very fast in straight lines. It's often known in iRacing to be the fastest car in GTE. So what happened afterwards? Much like all the other manufacturers, they could not get away from the racing, and they came out with their BMW M4 GT3 car. That's where it would finish, and we would start the next generation. Let's take time out and think about great moments in race car movie history. What comes to mind for me is Mr. Ford crying in the front seat of that Ford GT as he's being talked into allowing the program to go on. Because that was back in the 1960s, and that was real. Ford versus Ferrari. If you've watched the movie, you've got to love it. Shelby, the rest, the hijinks. My goodness, it was crazy. But what did that mean? That meant Ford was out of the game for a long time. Soon after the late 60s, Ford got out of the game, and they came back in. Announced in 2015 that they would be back in sports car racing. Based on the 2006 Ford GT road car, this was designed from the ground up to provide a car that raced that you could go get in the showroom tomorrow. Now, I remember when this car came out. It was a hot car, and they only made so many of them to drive those prices up. And I always got this feeling up at the Ford. It seemed like a little bit of a gimmick. Is the car fast? It's fast, but it's not one of the faster cars in GTE. Is it pretty? Well, look at that thing. The butt kicker GT3, E that you see right there, that thing looks good. Come on, the lights, everything about it, it's a fancy car. Now, before I start looking like I'm too negative about it, I'm trying not to be. But it came out, it was there, and it served a purpose. Let's sell showroom cars. And it did. People loved it. You could see them out there, but like most fads in the United States, it was retired and it left. All right, 2019 was it. So you're talking about a few years of this car being around. But does iRacing have it? Yeah. Why? Because it's fun and it looks good. It's a great, fun car. I mean, look at that spoiler on the diffuser on the back of that thing. Look at it just hanging off of that. It's incredible. Anyways, what would it be replaced with? It would be replaced by the Mustang and the GT3. So what is the legacy of GTE racing? Well, one, it's the pinnacle of GT engineering. These GTE cars push road cars to their limit, often beyond anything that GT3 would allow today. Manufacturers are free to reposition engines, radically alter their aerodynamics, and use cutting-edge tech while fitting in that GT silhouette. This made GTE cars true performance machines, still sitting between GT3 and the prototypes. But that would come at a cost. Part of the legacy is the legendary factory battles. GTE was defined by direct factory warfare, especially in the GTE Pro. Ferrari versus Porsche, Corvette versus Ford, BMW versus Aston Martin, and all turned around. These rivalries produced unforgettable Le Mans showdowns, controversial balance of power calls. It seemed like every year somebody was being called out, and dramatic team radios. What was probably the most fun, if you will, was back in 2016 when Ford returned after 50 years and it beat Ferrari. This sparked outrage. How could any factory team just jump back in? Some people started to call for regulations. Like all auto racing, the development of these cars led to better cars on the road. Aerodynamic philosophy, tire management strategies, endurance reliability, all this evolved under GTE. Manufacturers took what they had learned in GTE and brought it to their road cars, and they also brought it to their GT3 development. Even ABS-free cars like the Porsche RSR taught engineers about driver feedback and tire grip and tire balance. This all led to a better racing environment for everyone. This was a cautionary tale, though. It put limits to the elite racing. GTE also exposed flaws in modern-day motorsports. The costs were too high. The politics of balance of power was frustrating teams. Too many customers couldn't afford to be in this type of racing. It became an exclusive club, and that was its downfall. The move to GT3 was a reaction to GTE becoming unsustainable despite all its greatness. So where did GT3 come from? Well, the FIA introduced it in 2006, and it was a radical shift. Like I'd said before, it wasn't a spec car series, but what it was a group of people who understood for our industry to grow and for there to be more developers and more drivers, things had to happen. There became a formula, and that formula was very, very cost specific. Almost every reaction that GTE did was based on the flaws of GTE. It thrived because it learned from the chaos of GTE. GT3 is often called a spec series, but that's not the case at all. They thrived from learning from past mistakes. They created this formula. The formula was easy, lower cost, factory built, but customer sold, standardized balance of performance, electronic aids to let people get into it, not having to be the elite class of driver. And that brought on a wide variety of cars from all kinds of manufacturers. Because let's face it, these guys want to build cars. These manufacturers want to see their cars succeed. But most importantly, they want to sell their cars. They want those cars on everybody's streets. And that's what you're seeing in modern day GT3 racing environment. As you look over the spreadsheet and see how many different GT3 cars there are, and the brief summary and the challenges that they have, it's amazing to think of where it's come from. The GTE series basically ran itself into the ground to where all the manufacturers who were once in, very few left standing. They all slowly went to the GT3. And what did that give us? An abundance of cars. It was profitable. GT3 cars basically were built to be sold. You know, customers had this racing platform that they could join. You know, you would sell them to private teams. One of the most historic things was the Chip Ganassi group having a team in the UK and also in the United States. There's ongoing revenue and spare parts and engineering support, data, setup, you name it. GT3 became a business, not just a marketing expense, but a business, something people could make money on. And one of the lessons they learned was the balance of performance. You created this level field. So maybe you were a smaller manufacturer. You could get into racing. GT3 became a global marketing brand. IMSA in the United States. The WEC was global, going around the world. The GT World Challenge Series in Europe, Asia, and America. And on top of that, all kinds of 24-hour races and endurance races. And what's that all mean for iRacing? And why should we have two different series that are so similar? And why should you invest in both of them? Well, I find it to be very simple. You expand your driving skill set. By racing both leagues, you're able to expand and create a wider range of driving techniques. It's going to help you in the long run, create better muscle memory. It also helps you improve your racecraft, especially in multi-class and single-class racing. You learn how to navigate traffic, and when you're able to race two different kinds of cars that are similar, when you get in different kinds of settings, you're going to be able to adapt more to that. And how do you adapt better? Getting more seat time, getting in that car. Racing both keeps you fresh. And it also makes sure that you don't burn out. Go from one to the other. It also gives you an opportunity to have a better ability to go into better special events. iRacing has a plethora of special events. I think most importantly, it gives you an opportunity to race with different levels of people. When you're racing in the GT3 series, you're often on a popular week racing with only people at your level, we had mentioned this before. When you drive in the GTE series, you're often going to be matched on the track with people who are a lot better than you, and for a lack of a better word, a lot worse than you at the same time. And this helps you better navigate a racy scenario. So let's go full circle and look at the pros and cons between the two series. Try to simplify this. The pros for GTEs, they're faster overall. Who doesn't want to go fast? There's more aero grip, allowing you to corner better. On the other hand, there's no ABS. But this will reward you if you're a decent trail breaker. You have more durable tires. You know, the question in a 45-minute race, do you change tires? I want to argue no every time. And you have longer fuel stints. And now you can go ahead and play that game. Do you stay out there to the last drop and take a shorter pit? The cons, however, they're harder to drive, especially these for newer drivers. With no ABS, it can lead to more lockups and flat spotting. Less support in official series. You know, there's not a whole lot. There's just one. But I tend to like it. It's a lot of fun. You have smaller GT fields. I just mentioned that. All right? But it's not going to be bogged down. And then it's a less world party parody. The GTE has been phased out, and it's kind of like playing pretend. It's going back in time. But racing to me is just racing. iRacing's full of legendary cars and cars from the past, and it's just a good time. So think about those things before you decide if you want to do this or not. But let's take another look at the GT3. Let's go with the pros and cons on those. The pros. GT3s are easier to drive. Due to ABS and traction control, things seem to be a bit easier. But don't be fooled. You have to master those things too. They're more popular. GT3s are popular. They have more official races and leagues. There's a greater variety of cars and liveries. People are really into GT3. I believe it dominates iRacing right now. It's closer racing. Because there's a tighter balance of performance across the fields, you're going to have tighter racing. And I think maybe the thing that's the most important is that there's better support from iRacing. The cons, the cars are a little bit slower, but they're still fast. They're heavier and more reliant on mechanical grip, and then when that mechanical grip goes away, you go away. Another thing is tire wear, but let's be cautious. The Season 3 update that happened a couple months ago in 2005, I think fixed a lot of that. And also, you could be fooling yourself. ABS can mask poor braking technique, but you won't know that until you get up into the higher realms of racing. It's a lot of fun working with ABS. The inspiration for making this video is simple. Dave Cam and his YouTube page turned me on to a GTE series. It's a forgotten series. It's been around for as long as I've been on this thing, but it just kind of faded away, and it's too bad because it's a great series. So I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. You know, and if you did like it, obviously hit that like button and try to subscribe. I'm being honest with you. I do this as a hobby. I'm not making money. There's only a few of you guys who have subscribed. So every day, if I get one, it just really makes my day better. It makes me want to do more of these videos. In the next couple weeks, I'm going to return to some more NASCAR stuff and looking at how NASCAR's changed from the early 2000s to today. So, one more thing. If you enjoyed this, pass it on or visit one of our social media ventures that are up here. We enjoy what we're doing. We love racing on the track. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.